Okay, so let's start with what is a retrospective?
So at its basic core, retrospective is a meeting. It's a team meeting. It's a debrief on whatever happened from the last project, the last launch, last milestone. And it's an opportunity for the team to get together for like either an hour to an hour and a half, depending on the size of the team. And you go over what worked, what needs improvement, and then what action steps should you take for the next time. A lot of different industries use it, and it's a really, really helpful tool to just get everyone in the same space to reflect and move on for the next project.
Yes, and I love this. And you had told me when you approached me that you had done this in your last corporate job, and I had actually never heard the word. But it makes sense because it's good practice to sit down after lunch and go over this. And usually entrepreneurs have small teams and we're just like filling out a doc and we don't really give the post-launch like the brain space we need. So you had approached me and my team and said, let's do this. And I was like, hell yeah. So can you walk us through like what that process looked like?
I am what we call a facilitator. So I'm not on Emily's team. That means that I'm a really neutral party and can walk into a space and maybe like point out some of the things that everyone else wouldn't notice. So I approached Emily about this and basically we just put a team meeting on the calendar. I sent an email to her team just to say, hey, like this is what a retrospective is, just so you know what's coming up. And basically I just created a board. So you can create a board on Trello. That's what I use. Some people use Mural. These are just like online whiteboarding tools if you're not familiar with them. And basically, you just create 3 columns as the facilitator. So I create a column of what worked, what didn't work, or what could be improved, and action items. And I sent that out to the team in advance. So like roughly a week after the course launch, we all got together and I basically facilitated this meeting where it's really just a safe, focused space for everyone to get to write down in the board. So if you're in person, you use sticky notes. If you're in Trello, it's all online. And then everyone gets a chance once they offer up their suggestions in each column to vote on which ones they think are worth talking about. And that's where I get in and help facilitate like, okay, like, can you tell me more about like, what didn't work about, your work in Asana this time? Or Emily, tell me more about after the webinar, how you need a little bit more help. One of the most important parts of a retrospective is to assign people to next steps, because that's how you know that an action item will actually taken place if somebody actually is assigned to it, right? And then afterwards, send a bit of a recap to everybody.
This was so important to me because Becky created this neutral place for my team to brain dump a bunch of ideas. And then Becky helped select the top ones to actually discuss. So we didn't have time to go over everything, but it was really important. One of my team values is that everybody has a voice. Everybody's opinion is heard. I want everyone to have a seat at the table. I want everyone's brains on strategy. And so I really want this like 360 feedback. Like I want to hear and I want to make things better. So can you talk to everyone a little bit about how you picked the most important topics to discuss?
I, as a facilitator of retrospectives, help guide the team is looking at kind of what are some themes? Like a lot of people are kind of saying the same thing, just in different words. So kind of grouping those things together. And on Trello, you can like move things around to group them together. And there's also a voting feature on Trello too. So we give space to people to really not only write what they thought, but like when they read someone else's, they're like, oh yeah, definitely that. And they can vote on that. So it really is this opportunity for everyone to get together and raise their hand on something, like you said, they wouldn't necessarily take the time or feel comfortable raising in another setting. And I would say one other thing too, which is like the retrospective is like when done often, which is the best way to do it. Like software engineer teams, for instance, like they call it a ritual. A lot of times they do this every 2 weeks. And it's sort of like a way to exercise like open communication. So if you can't get whatever you need to get out in 60 minutes, it's just like creating a culture of like speaking your mind and giving space for that. And so that's okay that like you couldn't talk about like literally everything in that hour.
Can we do retrospectives outside of launches? Is it something we should be doing with our teams? And if so, when?
Yeah, I mean, people do them sometimes at the end of what's called sprints. So after like a certain period of time, like say 2 weeks, anytime there's like a milestone to look back at, because maybe you break your launch out, for instance, into various periods of time, the pre-launch, the during the launch, the webinar period, whatever it is, you could do a retrospective for each of those. But it depends on the team, what you guys have time for and what you find like useful. The other thing I would say is like the retrospective is sort of designed for the team that's going to be moving forward. It's sort of best like utilized with a team that has like a lot of motivation to improve for the future, because they're all going to like work together, and who you want to like foster that trust with. So it can work in a lot of scenarios, but I definitely think it works when you have this team that you're kind of like wanting to grow and build over time.
What kind of business owner is best fit for using you for their services to run this?
Yeah. So I would say somebody who is at the beginning of sort of growing their roster of whether they have employees and they're new to it, or they have sort of a roster of freelancers that they're working with. And maybe that team doesn't know each other because everyone lives in different places. They're just coming on. So anywhere I would say between like 2 to 10 people. So sometimes business owners like you like bring in a ton of freelancers for a launch. And then sometimes people have more steady work. So it could be anything.
So Becky, when it comes to launches, as business owners, like we're in the weeds and we're spending money right and left, Facebook ads, copywriters and whatnot. Why should we invest time and money into a retrospective?
I think it kind of goes against maybe popular wisdom that like it's worth your time and the time of your freelancers to sit down and talk about like what worked and didn't and air their feelings and things like that. But actually, like some of the most successful and kind of forward thinking tech companies right now are doing these rituals. So, research actually shows that teams improve their performance by 25% if they do what's called a debrief, which is basically chatting afterwards about what worked and what didn't work. Like there's actual research behind it. It's not just fluff. And I would say too, like I would even say above and beyond sort of corporate teams that are made up of freelancers in this kind of Wild West remote space could benefit even more, I think, from that rare opportunity to sit down and talk about what worked and didn't work, because there's lots of different, personalities and motivations for like working independently. And so if you're working now as a team together, having that space to talk is like even more important for your performance.
Oh my gosh. And there was just something so powerful about you setting the meeting and it being on my calendar and not something that I could cancel or delay. Because things got bananas after the launch, and having that deadline and that accountability and that third party person that I need to show up for and my team needs to show up for, like there's something powerful there too. So if you're listening to this and you're a digital marketing assistant or you're a virtual assistant and this is something your client needs, you see them on the struggle bus and they're a little bit of a hot mess and they should just be doing it even if they're organized. You can hire Becky to come in and do this for you too.
Yeah. And if you want to run a retrospective yourself, I actually have a template available on my website, beckyrubenstein.com/retrospective. And you can click a link there and do that and run it yourself if that's what you want to do.
Awesome. Thank you for the freebie.